want to get in front?
Get in front and tell people what to expect.
You can control, you know that. Yeah. Morning, everybody. Dan Folkman. We're about to start the Fighting Bob Fest program here at the Triple I Shrine, downtown Milwaukee. It's going to be a really important event. We've got some great speakers and some panel discussions, and it's all going to be happening here on the stage. There's Donna. Hi, Donna. How you doing? Give me a hug. Hey, everybody. Very good. Thank you so much. All right. So we're going to be, everything's going to happen on the stage. And we're just going to have the camera now focus on the stage and the sign down here as we continue to set up our equipment. But we should be starting momentarily. So hang on with us. And by the way, don't forget to like and most importantly, share this stream with all your friends so that we can really boost the number of people watching this program. Our goal here is to get 10,000 views. Think we can do that? 10,000 views. Let's do this. Thank you.
So, are we going to open this with... So I think the best thing is to have, when he opens, is just to wheel him right here in the light. So if he wants to aim right here from just the opening, Art will start opening the song right at the beginning. Whenever he's before speakers or, you know, just the first one to go up.
I don't know. I don't know.
But just so you know, he's going to kind of kick things off a little bit right in the beginning. So I would show you where he would be in the light. Is he in the light?
Yeah, he's good. He's good. He's good. Yeah. He's being broadcast right now.
He's going to need a handheld microphone there. So we'll maybe... Is this...
Charles?
Need that to pick him up.
All right. I got 10 other things to do here.
Okay. Do you have an extra SD card for me?
Yes, I do. Why'd you use yours now? Or
talk to you about, did you?
This way. No, sit in the front row.
Yeah.
Just give me these three.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go for it, man. Go for it.
Yes, thank you.
And I'll get rid of this as soon as
No,
I can.
you're good. No, you're good. You got your job cut out for you.
Yeah, I wish I knew what it was.
Excuse me. Excuse me. So where are you streaming this?
Pardon?
Is this being streamed?
Yes, it is, to YouTube. Yeah. And let me get this set up. I'll get you the link. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Oh yeah.
It's two people reserved. Could anybody sit anywhere?
Yeah, sit anywhere. Absolutely. Take the front seat. Get in the front seat. Yep. Absolutely.
my man. Up and at 'em.
Hey, how you doing? Hi, folks, again. Thanks for staying tuned. The program will be starting. You can hear they're testing their sound, and we've got streams of people coming in. There's, let me pan over here for you. Now you can see the room is filling up. It's a vast hall, so this III Shrine facility downtown Milwaukee is just phenomenal. But back here against the wall, all right, you can see there's all kinds of tables. I don't know, there's got to be 30 or 40 grassroots organizations that are doing tabling. In other words, they've got their information out there on the table, handout, but most importantly, they're making contacts. They're connecting with each other, and they're building the grassroots system of interactions and political engagement, and most important, informing each other about the issues and what's best for our community, our city, our state, and of course our nation and the world. This is Fighting Bob Fest being live broadcast from downtown Milwaukee at the III Shrine facility. Today is Saturday morning, September 16th, Fighting Bob Fest. This is going to continue to be streaming while everything gets set up. I'm going to turn the camera back to the stage. The lighting is a little bit better this way. Okay. If I can get out here into the foyer, you can see that there's just a continuous stream of people coming today for the Fighting Bob Fest program. So bear with us. I'm going to turn the video back to the main stage. And there's Fighting Bob. So with that, folks, I'm going to go back and continue to work on setting up my equipment. I think it's all working pretty fine. But hang in there with it, and now share this stream with your friends on your Facebook, on your Twitter feeds, on your YouTube channels. This is going to be a tremendous program. Our goal is 10,000 people to be viewing this program throughout the country and the world. This is live on YouTube. Good.
So how you like that cannon?
Good, very good. We're broadcasting live on Facebook right now. streaming live from the Triple I Shrine facility, downtown Milwaukee. This is Fighting Bob Fest. There's Triple I Shrine. Single P-R-I-P-O-L-I. Here. All right, so you can see the program is still getting started. We're live streaming. I want you to stay with us. Again, share this link with your friends. Our goal is 10,000 views today, and we're not going to get there unless people share the link to their network friends. So we're all part of the movement here. This is Fighting Bob Fest. Dan Folkman broadcasting live. Community Rising. Dan Folkman, Community Rising. Here we have David Weinbrod. David, you're live on Facebook. Come around here.
Oh,
You're live on Facebook.
Facebook, that's dangerous.
No, you're not Facebook. Get over here. You're live on YouTube.
Welcome to Bob Fest, everybody. It should be exciting today.
Say a little
Lots
bit.
of people. Looks like we got a big crowd. Probably be well over 100 people here today. And if you're thinking of coming, come on down.
Say it, Dave, get back in there. Say a few words about the Fighting Fest, the history of it, what you know about it, and why
I
should
don't
people...
know all the history, but this is something that started out of Madison with Ed Garvey and some of the people in Madison, and it's continued, and it's kind of this open forum space for progressives to talk about issues that are of importance. This year, it was deemed handed over to our Wisconsin Revolution. Put it on. We have a couple big name speakers coming. Nina Turner from our Revolution, and now I'm spacing out on the other guy's name. So anyways.
All right. This is live streaming from YouTube, and the power of being able to be behind the camera, I can put all my friends and people I know on the spot, because suddenly now they got to say something. Now they know what it's like. So here it is again. Stay tuned. This is Fighting Bob Fest being broadcast live by Dan Folkman, Community Rising, downtown Milwaukee in the Triple I Shrine facility. This is going to be a really interesting event, so please stay tuned. I can't talk to you. I'm ready. Later on, I'll give you all the time I have.
That seemed to work. Is this all okay?
What they tell me. Now, I don't know if it's uppercase or lowercase. So you might. I've been trying it both ways. I'm not able to connect. Yeah. again, this is Dan Folkman, Community Rising, broadcasting live from Milwaukee at the III Shrine facility. And I'm going to pan the audience. You can see the room is beginning to fill up. Yes, it's starting a little late. We're out of control on that one. But this is as you can see, the room is vast. Really very, very large. What's going on in the back there? I'm going to zoom in for you. These are all the tables. You can see it's just one table after another, and it's called tabling. There you see a person talking to an organization. I don't know what the organization is, but our grassroots community organizations are showing and displaying all the programs, activities, resources that they have, and people come to the tables, talk and learn about what's going on, and most importantly, how they can get involved. This is what's going on as the program is getting ready to start, and people are still coming in from the street, from the parking lot. The backlighting is a little bad here, so I apologize for that. But there it is. There's a good shot of people talking with a resident, a participant in the audience here about the program and activities. Let's see if I can get what it is. Oh, that's Move to Amend. Move to Amend. This is an organization that's been promoting a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. So this is southeastern Wisconsin.
You got a bunch of great speakers. I do have lost and found. Did anyone drop their handicap
This is live streaming
in the parking lot? This is
Turned on?
Yep, I'm on.
we'll leave it
But I got to get plugged in.
if anyone dropped it. 2-minute warning.
I'm back. And I'll go back, and I was talking about the Move to Amend table. Again, here's an organization that is promoting a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. As you can see, and again, I'll just pan the back room here. You get a sense of how big this room is, and it's filling up very nicely. You can pick up your I unplugged it because I'm talking to the folks as I'm handing. I don't know if you Okay, all right, folks. So
we got seats up there. Excuse us. Sir?
this is really amazing. I'm I'm excited about today. We're going to have a really great program. Again, this is Dan Folkman, Community Rising, live streaming Fighting Bob Fest in downtown Milwaukee. Triple I Shrine facility.
Sitting in the front row.
It is.
Okay.
All right, as you can see, the room is filling up, and I do believe we're going to have the program starting shortly. So once again, our goal here, this is Dan Folkman, Community Rising. I'm live streaming this Fighting Bob Fest, downtown Milwaukee. As you can see, there's a lot of people here. The goal for the live stream is to get 10,000 views today. Let's get 10,000 views. I can't do that unless I have everyone in the live stream audience back home or at the coffee shop or hopefully not driving your car. But to share this link, share this to your network, to your friends, to your associates, and ask them to share. We get a cascading of sharing, viewing, and liking. It's important that people like this program and share it. That stimulates the whole idea of social networking, social media, and really, we can get 10,000 views, and you help us through sharing. You become an activist in the movement just by tuning in, viewing, sharing, commenting, and liking. This is Dan Folkman broadcasting live downtown Milwaukee, Fighting Bob Fest. Fighting Bob Fest. Yeah, right here. This is live streaming. I sent you a link. Go to your email and get the link.
Okay, we're going to get this show on the road, so please settle in. We have a great lineup of speakers today, so we want to make sure that we all get time to talk to them. So please settle in and show on the road. We're going to start out with an invocation with Art Shigone of the Menominee Potawatomi tribe. So if everyone can settle in, I'm going to get the microphone for him to be able to do the invocation. What's the kindergarten thing? Raise your hand if you can hear me, or clap once if you can hear me. Okay. So we're going to start with an invocation. Art was able to be at the kickoff yesterday also in Madison, and he's planning to go to lacrosse also. So this is great continuity for all of the fighting nonsense. So if everyone can please take a moment, we're going to make sure we're starting this off correctly with honoring the place that we are here right now. So Art Shigone with Menominee Potawatomi will give us invocation.
Good morning. Welcome to my country. I welcome all of you to my country, and that I'm not kicking anybody out of my country. We have a last name. I want to welcome all of you here today, and for it's been last night was really awesome in Madison. You had some really great speakers, one right after another, and they all had really great things to say, you know. And where I come from, I'm a Menominee Potawatomi, and we have 11 different tribes here in Wisconsin. And the thing is, when we our prophecies, we have different prophecies in all of our traditions. And one of our prophecies is the Ojibwe prophecy, Ashkeba Matazing. And it said, when the water turns to poison and you can no longer eat the fish, the waters get poisoned, but we have two roads, one of prosperity and one of greed. And we all need to come together as brothers and sisters, as human beings. We need to treat each other with respect and not disrespect. And I feel that we have too much of this disrespect of our nations, of our brothers and sisters. It wasn't too long ago, there was a prophecy also in Janesville, Wisconsin, where the white buffalo came. The people thought that they didn't know about it. They had to tell them and teach them about this prophecy of the white buffalo calf. And the white buffalo calf was born in Janesville, Wisconsin, one of the racist places to be. But why this calf was born in Janesville, we don't know. But maybe it was to show us a better way of life. This calf was meant for peace, balance, and harmony. She stayed for a little while. The people from all over the world came to see that calf. From all cultures, all religions, all faiths, beliefs. She didn't stay for too long, and the reason why she didn't stay is because we as brothers and sisters are not treating each other with respect. Because we're not ready for that responsibility, we're not ready for that prophecy yet. But in time, we are going to be. And today, in this week, that's what this is all about, fighting Bob Fest, getting along, and harmony and balance, unity. There shouldn't be any racism, there shouldn't be any discrimination. I thought that we're more about that now. And I think that we're reaching that point. For all you that are here, you're all part of the Ashkeba Magazine. You're all part of the new people that are emerging day in and day out. And I think that it's awesome. It's really great that we have these events like this. Let other people know about these events. They want to, they're thirsty, they're hungry to do something, to get off their rear ends, to do something positive for our state, for themselves, for our future generation. I'm here for my future generation. I'm here for you. And I'll do the best I can. We all need clean air, clean water. We all have to live on this Mother Earth. We only have one Mother Earth. And one of the things I'm going to let you in on a little secret, don't tell anybody else. We're building a new casino. It's going to be on the moon. But anyways, we also have humor. We have to also not to forget to laugh. Not take things too serious. We have to laugh. We have to have a little fun too. And that's what this world is all about. Peace, balance, and harmony. So I want you guys all to have fun today. Enjoy, mingle, and donate. Help this cause as well. Give what you can for these great events to keep happening. And I know that we're going to have some great speakers today, because we had yesterday. And after this, I'll go into the cross. So thank you very much. Enjoy the day.
Thank you, Art. And before we kick off with the show, we need to have another local welcome. So we're very excited that Evan Goyke is here. He is the assembly person for this actual district, District 18.
Good morning. I just want to say thank you to the organizers and to all of you in attendance for coming to my neighborhood and making my commute an easy 5-minute walk this morning. You're in the near west side of Milwaukee, a neighborhood that for as long as I've been alive has been divested in by state and federal governments. And unfortunately, for too many in the state of Wisconsin, it has been labeled as a deficit to the state of Wisconsin and not an asset, and that is factually wrong. I am very proud to live in and represent the central city of Milwaukee, a vibrant, beautiful, diverse place. And part of my job in the state assembly is to teach others that have never been here and have never met my community, and teach them the value and the assets that we have here. So I will just put a brief promotion that my little table is the first one over there on the left, or my left, your right. And I have some information about what I'm up to in the State Assembly to effectuate change in this community, and I'd welcome a conversation with any of you. I just want to end by saying thank you. We welcome you here. Please take a moment, if you can, throughout the day to take in this historic neighborhood. There's some great restaurants, there's some great taverns. If you're so inclined, welcome and thank you. Have a great day. Thank you, sir.
Great, so we have been welcomed, and I should tell you who I am. I am Sarah Lloyd, the co-chair of our Wisconsin Revolution. And we're really thrilled to be here in Milwaukee. Raise your hand if you have been to a Fighting Bob Fest before. All right, we have the solid crew here. So I happened upon the 2001 Fighting Bob Fest in Baraboo at the Sauk County Fairgrounds as a new returnee to rural Wisconsin. And lucky, I saw the flyer in my library, and I wandered over there and I said, wow, what is this thing? Where have I landed? This is wonderful. And I became kind of a groupie for Bobfest, and I organized the tables for about 8 years when it was at the fairgrounds. And I got to know the founder of Fighting Bobfest, Ed Garvey, and all the volunteers that worked with him. And yes, let's first for sure give a well-deserved shout out to Ed. We wouldn't be here today without him, actually. He was a real power to the people person, and he was fighting for helping people create unions at their places that they worked. I worked with him on a citizen fight over an ethanol plant. And actually, I married my husband in part because I met them through the Perrier-Nestle fight that went on in the Dells area to kick Perrier-Nestle out of the state and not allow them to steal our groundwater. So Fighting Bobfest, named after Bob La Follette, who was our very progressive senator, governor in the early 1900s, who even then fought against corporate dominance. He fought for farmers to be able to have better access to transport for their own products. So we are here standing on the shoulders of giants, standing on the shoulders of Bob La Follette and Belle, Case La Follette. Let's give a shout out for Bob's wife, Belle. And we are here today as Our Wisconsin Revolution in collaboration with the Progressive Magazine and the Cap Times. And Our Wisconsin Revolution is a new organization that came together with the energy that came around Bernie Sanders. And part of the reason that we know Bernie Sanders so well in Wisconsin is he came to BobFest many, many years. So this is all part of this continued energy building that we're going to need to come together to have a real democracy and a fair economy, a clean environment, and an efficient and transparent government that really works for everyone and not just the few. So that's our vision and our mission. And I want to invite up to the stage right now Norm Stockwell from the Progressive Magazine, who is part of putting on BobFest. So come on up, Norm.
Well, thank you very much. Welcome everybody to Fighting BobFest Milwaukee. Fighting BobFest, as Sarah said, was founded by Ed Garvey. Ed Garvey passed away earlier this year, sadly. And Ed had always dreamed of Fighting BobFest being all over the state of Wisconsin, not just in Madison, not just in Baraboo, but spreading out its tentacles throughout Wisconsin. And so this year, working together with Our Wisconsin Revolution, we have begun that process. We have Milwaukee, Madison, and La Crosse. Next year, maybe even more different places around the state. I'm the publisher of the Progressive Magazine. Our magazine was founded by Robert M. Fighting Bob La Follette in January of 1909. We celebrated our 108th anniversary earlier this year. And there's a table back there with sample copies of the magazine. Please grab some, and also subscription forms if you would like to get it delivered to your home. The current issue features John Nichols, who's I know going to be speaking later today, talking about the case for impeachment, and many, many more great articles. Well, Fighting BobFest was taken over by the Progressive, was given, I guess I should say, by Ed Garvey to the Progressive Magazine to run a few years ago, and we have done our best to keep that tradition alive. And I think that what we see here today is really a prime example of that tradition. So many different folks working on so many different activities around this state to make our state and our lives better. Lots of great tables out here I'm seeing, and you'll get a chance to wander around and look at those, and an incredible lineup of great speakers throughout the day, showcasing positive visions of progressive change, both here in Wisconsin and around the United States. So welcome everyone, and have a great BobFest today here in Milwaukee.
And I'm thrilled to call up a fellow board member from Our Wisconsin Revolution, Marina Dmitriyevich. Was that close? Hey! My Russian language training came in, although she's not Russian. Marina is with the Working Families Party, among many other hats that she wears, and she is a force here in the region and in Milwaukee, and so we'll welcome her to the stage to talk about all the work that's going on.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. All the work that's going on. All right. Has everybody had their coffee? I hope so, because this is a very exciting day. I'm Marina Dmitriyevich, and Sarah's right. Just like Sarah, I wear a lot of different hats. My most favorite hat is that I'm the new mother of a 1.5-year-old, my son Raphael. If you happen to be friends with me on Facebook, you see a lot of pictures. And why that's important is, you know, just like you all, we all have our inspiration. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here today. That's why I'm part of our revolution. That's why I'm part of Working Families Party. That's why I continue to serve on our Milwaukee County Board, because I know that together we can do better. And that's what Fighting BobFest is really all about, is coming together. And we keep using the word recharge our batteries. I don't know about you. I mean, part of it is because I do have a 1.5-year-old that I'm running around and chasing him, and I'm tired. But who needs their batteries recharged right now? I do. Yeah? Well, let's do that together this morning. Let's get some coffee, right, to help start the battery a little bit. But let's do it together. This is an amazing crowd. There's more people that are going to be filling in throughout the day for Fighting Bob Fest. And two of the points that Sarah had wanted me to talk about quickly, it's hard to do quickly, but we're income inequality and getting big money out of politics. So how do we continue the revolution that's been started here a long time ago in Wisconsin that we want to continue, that's a pathway to really help win our city and our state back? Two things that I just want to mention. It's hard to cover that large of issues just in a few minutes here, but I think it's a good way to get started. And there's some fundamental values that we really truly care about in Working Families Party, in our revolution, and certainly here in Fighting Bob Fest. So you can see from my shirt how I feel that we do need to tax the 1% and the rich because everybody needs to pay their fair share. So we wear our values on our sleeves, in our heart, and I just tend to today wearing it on my shirt. I'm committed, and I hope you are too, to one of our core values to reduce income inequality in this nation and world. And I'd like to ask you to recommit today to $15 in a union. $15, okay? Talking about fair share, everyone deserves a fair shot at that American dream. Who should have to work full-time and still live in poverty? I can't believe that we're here in 2017. You know, a $15 minimum wage would begin to reverse the decades of growing pay inequality. And one thing that I wanted to point out, that the failure to adequately increase the minimum wage has accounted for 48% of the increase in inequality between women at the middle and bottom of the wage distribution since 1979. So, you know, we hear a lot that this just affects certain people, but really, the average person that would stand to be benefited by a minimum wage increase to $15 is a 36-year-old woman. And so when we put more money in the pockets of lower income workers, it naturally stimulates our economy. We know that, but let's continue, and I ask you to recharge your battery and recommit to that today. Okay? Next up, quickly, I really wanted to hit on what else I was asked for. They go hand in hand. We need to take back our elections and take big money out of politics. Having mega donors in the elections means that these mega donors are the ones who determine who runs for office and who doesn't run for office. Okay? They determine the narrative of these very elections. And they even are determining, as we know, with their Wall Street support in Congress, the agenda that comes out of Congress. That's not okay. And we know there's a few things that we can do. We can start with our most important remedy, which is overturning Citizens United. Let's recommit to that. Recommit to that. Let's also commit to finding ways for strong public financing measures of elections and, of course, limits on outside spending with the most transparent and robust distribution limits. So I ask you to, this morning, in the spirit of reducing income inequality and getting big money out of politics, let's recommit to $15 in a union, and let's recommit to getting big money out of politics and overturning Citizens United. Are you with me this morning? All right. Yeah, this is a party. Let's get this party started. Come on. All right. Well, lastly, with that recommitting and recharging our batteries, I want to ask you to recommit to groups like Our Revolution. Wisconsin Working Families Party has a table over there, and I want to ask you to really enjoy this day, recharge your battery. I'm happy to be here, and I am happy for a partnership that we have with Our Wisconsin Revolution and Working Families Party, and I'm going to give you just a 20-second preview. In a couple weeks, we're going to be launching really a project statewide to talk about how the people people can take back our government in the state of Wisconsin. We have a very, very robust field of candidates running for governor right now, and that's great, and I hope that there's more that enter. I want as many people to run for office as possible. That's a good, robust electoral process. We should all be engaged. So our Wisconsin Revolution and Working Families Party are going to come to a town near you. We're going to survey you. We're going to ask you what you think. We're going to put out a job description about who should be occupying or not occupying that mansion in Madison. And we're going to take back our state of Wisconsin government, city by city, county by county, state by state. And instead of letting the candidates or mega donors or even parties decide who is in front of us to vote for, we're going to put the power back into where it should be, in your hands, the power of the people. We're going to set the agenda. We're going to demand big money out of politics. We're going to demand $15 and a bunch of other great values that you all share that are going to be talked about today. And I guarantee you that we will win. We will win together. And in the spirit of fighting Bob Fest, let's keep the fight up, Wisconsin. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Marina. And I think we saw this week about money in politics. Did you see that graph that they put up on the news of all the money that went into both Democratic and Republican Congress and senators from the healthcare industry? But guess who led the charge on the new Medicare for All? Bernie Sanders. And he got $0 from the big healthcare industry, and he started with 0 co-sponsors. But guess what? Now there's 12, 13, 15? Can I hear 16? Excellent. Yeah, and we should thank Tammy Baldwin, our senator, for her support of that bill. So let's keep encouraging our current elected officials to do the right thing. So speaking of needing to have elected officials that do the right thing, we need a new attorney general, because I will say that we actually did invite the current attorney general, Mr. Schimmel, here today, and I never heard back from his campaign and his office. I left messages and sent emails, but the good news is we have someone who can be an attorney general for the people, and I've asked Josh Call for Attorney General to come up and speak with us today briefly about all the work that he's doing and his platform. So welcome, Josh.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks so much for everybody coming out so early on a beautiful Saturday morning at the end of summer. It is so inspiring to see so many people out here working hard to make our state stronger, to make Wisconsin fairer. And thanks for fighting Bob Fest, for having me. Could we get a round of applause for my friend Sarah for putting this great event together? The list of speakers you guys have put together is really phenomenal. And let me introduce those of you who I haven't met to me for a minute. I grew up in Oshkosh and Fond du Lac. A lot of you know my mom, Peg Lautenschlager, who was a prosecutor and elected official. And I grew up in a law enforcement family. My stepdad, Bill Ripple, was a police officer in Neenah for a lot of his career. And I'm proud to say that my grandparents were both public school teachers in the Fond du Lac schools. And I was inspired by the work that they did. I spent part of my career as a federal prosecutor in Baltimore. I prosecuted murderers, I prosecuted gang members, and I prosecuted large-scale drug traffickers. And I gotta tell you, as a prosecutor, I saw people who shipped drugs into the country through the mails in big packages. I saw people who transported drugs in semis across the country. I saw people who would swallow drugs and bring them into the country. And never once did I think, if only we were spending $10 billion on a giant wall between the United States and Mexico. Never once. And after I worked as a federal prosecutor, I committed to fighting for voting rights in cases across the country, including here in Wisconsin. And doing that, I worked with Citizen Action and others throughout the state, and we helped strike down several of the laws that Scott Walker and the Republican legislature have put in place. We expanded access to early voting, so we had more early voting in Milwaukee and Madison than we had in the state in the history of Wisconsin. And in one of my cases, I got to tell you, I had a witness who's in the audience today. This was a case in Ohio, and I know that a lot of you are excited to see Nina Turner speak today, but I want to add to that. In my voting rights cases, I've called up a lot of people in elected office to ask them if they'd be willing to testify, and some of them have stepped up and others have said, it's a bit too risky. Well, when I called Nina Turner, her response was, how soon do you need me? And Nina was our first witness. She subjected herself to cross-examination from hostile lawyers, but she had the courage to go up there and fight for what's right. And on top of that, I learned that Nina, in 2012, after her home state of Ohio had rolled back early voting, went out, she and her husband pitched a tent in front of the early voting center in their county the night before early voting started in the freezing rain to make sure that everybody knew that they had to get out to vote early, to have their voices heard because early voting had been cut. So Nina is really committed to the cause. So I know you're all going to give her a big round of applause when she gets out here, but let's give her an extra special round of applause when she gets out here. Now, I'm running for Attorney General for a lot of reasons, but there's one fundamental one, which is I am concerned about the direction of our state, I'm concerned about the direction of the country, and there is so much that an effective Attorney General can do to fight for the hardworking men and women of Wisconsin. We've got an opioid epidemic right now that is tearing families in Wisconsin apart. There are kids who social services sees who have been left unattended, sometimes with needles laying around. There are parents who've had to put their lives aside so that they can help care for their kids. And far too often we've seen the tragic consequence of overdose deaths. But right now, our leaders in Madison aren't responding to that crisis like the crisis it is. I think we need an Attorney General who is going to start targeting traffickers who send drugs across county lines and state lines. But I also think we need an Attorney General who understands that part of the solution is investing in treatment in a way like we never have before, so that people who are addicted to drugs can beat their addiction. And we need an Attorney General who is going to fight against efforts to repeal access to health insurance, and is going to fight for more affordable health insurance so that people who are addicted can get the treatment that they need. We also have a rape kit backlog in this state that is just unacceptable. There are thousands of untested rape kits in Wisconsin. We've received millions of dollars to test those kits. And in Brad Schimmel's first 2 years in office, he tested how many of those kits? Does anybody know? 9. 9 of the thousands of kits. So I think we need an Attorney General who's going to be serious about making sure that survivors get justice and that people who've committed violent crimes have justice served. And we also need an Attorney General who understands that the job isn't just about fighting crime. It is also about enforcing the laws that keep Wisconsinites safe from consumer fraud, that enforce the laws that protect our natural resources in this state, which have been under attack in the last several years. Who's going to enforce our labor laws? And who's going to be a truly independent watchdog so that if there is an attack on our rights from the federal government or from the state government, we know that we have an Attorney General who is looking out for us and not for special interests and not for his political allies. I probably don't need to tell you this, but Brad Schimmel, who wouldn't return poor Sarah's emails, has taken a different approach to the office. You know, Bob LaFollette spent his career fighting against corporate and wealthy influence in politics. Brad Schimmel has spent his time as Attorney General bringing those influences into his office. His first Deputy Attorney General, the number 2 person in his office, was a corporate lobbyist who, after 2 years in office, has now returned to corporate lobbying and is lobbying for Foxconn right now. He's taken on lawsuit after lawsuit against the Obama administration, challenging environmental regulations, challenging rules that guarantee overtime pay to people who put in the hours and make between $23,000 and $47,000 a year, and challenging aspects of the Affordable Care Act. He's also spent about $83,000 of taxpayer money on promotional items. That includes custom-made fortune cookies. It includes commemorative coins, gold-plated commemorative coins with his name on them. As I like to tell people, if you're going to spend money on fake coins, they should at least have chocolate inside, right? But in all seriousness, if you want to define misplaced priorities, testing 9 rape kits in your first 2 years while you're spending more than $10,000 on fake coins, if that's not the definition of misplaced priorities, I don't know what is. So we need change in the Attorney General's office. We need an Attorney General who's going to fight for our environment, who's going to fight for consumers in Wisconsin, and who's going to be an independent watchdog for the hardworking men and women of this state. I'd love to have your support in doing that. We've got a table in the back left corner where McKinley, the tallest person in any room, is standing. You can't miss him. And let me just say one other thing before I step down today. The last 2 elections have not been good for progressives. I don't think anybody thinks they have been. But I got to tell you, standing here before you today, I could not be more optimistic about the future of our state and the future of our country. And that's because the story of this state and of this country is a story of progress. But it hasn't been a story of unbroken progress, of victory after victory. It's been a story of 2 steps forward followed by 1 step back, of pushing and pulling. And Fighting Bob LaFollette's career defined that. He was elected to Congress, but then he got beat. And then he tried to run for governor, and he got beat. And he tried to run for governor again, and he got beat again. And finally, the 3rd time he ran for governor, he was elected. And once the people of Wisconsin saw what he did in office, they kept electing him because he was fighting for the hardworking men and women of the state. And I got to tell you, we've been traveling around this state. We have been talking to Wisconsinites from every walk of life and from every corner of this state. And everywhere we have gone, people have been anxious, yes, but they have been inspired and they have recommitted themselves to making Wisconsin safer and stronger and fairer. And over the next 14 months, if everybody in this room keeps up what you're doing now and gets involved in campaigns and volunteers and gets involved in efforts like Fighting Bob Fest, in 2018, we are going to take a giant step forward for Wisconsin and for this country. So we'd love to have your help, and we are grateful to see you all out here today. Thank you so much.
Co-chair from our Wisconsin Revolution. Terrence Worthen is from the Kenosha area, CD1, and we are co-chairs right now on the board of our Wisconsin Revolution, and our Wisconsin Revolution has just brought on new board members representing every single CD. Maybe we should have, if you're on the board of our Wisconsin Revolution, stand up right now and wave emphatically. Okay, so we have a lot of our board members here. Make sure you talk to them. Some of our board members will be over in La Crosse. Marina, who is up here on stage, is on our board. So Terrence is going to tell you a little bit more about our Wisconsin Revolution and how you can get involved and why you should get involved. So take it away.
Thank you. Oh, good morning. And first of all, okay, I got a response. That's good. Everyone listened to Marina and got their coffee. Good job. Good job. So, of course, you saw all of our board members wave their hands, but you know what? How many members do we have in the room right now? Just any member. Raise your hand. Any member.
Okay, we need to do something about that. More hands.
You don't have to find a board member to hear about our Wisconsin Revolution. We love this organization. Anyone that had their hand up, grab any one of them, listen to why they're here, what they believe, and you're going to hear what comes from us. I have confidence in every single one of them, so please do that. Don't leave the room without speaking to one of them. I want to thank not only you for attending, but I want to thank all the partners that we have that help us put on this event today. Working Families Party, but all the tables you see around the room, Indivisible, Voces de la Frontera, too many to name. I'm not going to read off the whole list because I would just get bored. Oh, good, they're on the screen. I can't see the screen. But what I really want to answer for you, beyond anything else, is a question of who we really are. And you all see the mission statement, the vision statement, the eloquence that goes into those, but every organization has that. Who are we? More specifically, who are you? We are an organization that has one purpose, and that is to fight for each and every one of you. For a fair wage, for dignity in your work, for access to health care for all, to access to education for all, to a clean environment for all, and to a government that works for all, for each and every one of you. That is absolutely who we are. In every community, every city, county, township across this state, that is our Wisconsin revolution. And being a young organization, we didn't complete our board elections until August 24th, and we're already here today, bringing everyone together from across the state. And that is amazing. It's absolutely amazing to be a part of. And I thank each and every one of you for helping make that happen. We're defined by our members. And to be honest with you, all we can do at this point, from the standpoint that we're in, the place we're in this country right now, is be people that are willing to fight. Whether that's for the things we all hear about or the issues that no one knows about in your community. That's basically what we're here to do. To fight for each and every one of you, and we need each and every one of you to fight with us. So basically, are you one of us, is what we're asking. Are you really a progressive? Do you really want to live these values? And I agree so much with coming here to recharge your batteries and get that feeling and get that camaraderie and get that love. And we need this. But the work that needs to be done isn't just in this room. That work is in those solid red counties we have in this state, where there are people hoping that we show up, praying that we show up, that need us to show up to represent the values that they've forgotten should be a part of their government and the way they live their lives. The work is out there. If you're willing to go out there and do the hard part, if you're willing to knock on doors, then you're one of us. If you love when you're out canvassing, and you'll be canvassing if you're one of us, if you love skipping up that driveway past that big, beautiful Trump poster in the yard, because you're getting ready to have that conversation that you love to have, you're one of us. If it doesn't matter to you who a politician is represented by, a pachyderm or a donkey or whatever, rhinos, whatever animals you have, not that we're anti-animal. We like ponies, I hear. Everyone should get a pony. I want you to have a pony. There are ways to pay for the ponies. I'll leave that alone. But there are three pillars we want to work on specific to the state of Wisconsin. Three things that we lost in this state that we need to get our democracy back. You live in a voter suppression state, period. We lost 300,000 plus voters from our rolls this spring in Wisconsin who had not voted since the presidential election of 2012. If hearing that makes you want to get on your feet, if hearing that makes you want to go door to door and register, then you are one of us, and we need you to help us do that. 10% of the electorate was lost when we purged this spring, 10%. We need those people back, and more. We need you to canvass and engage and phone bank in the areas that are deep red, the places where we need you the most. If you're willing to do that, you're one of us. And here's the biggest thing. We aren't going to change anything unless we get people elected in this state. And because you can't buy us, and because no one can buy you, that's going to start locally. You heard about the gubernatorial campaign and what we're going to do going community to community. The important part of that is getting people to run for every single thing, every single seat we can. Go to every meeting, every school board meeting, every city council meeting, every county supervisors meeting, everything that you can get in the door for, you show up. You get behind the podium, you make your voice heard, your values heard. Sit through those meetings, and you're going to realize something: the people that represent you are certainly no better than you. They don't want more for you than you want for yourselves and for your neighbors and for your own families. There's never been a better time in this country or in this state to make your voice heard and get back out there and run for office. You can do that. And I never keep track of time, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, but I don't want to look back at my life at this period of time with a government that's been bought, with a world that's being poisoned. We're back to fighting Nazis in the streets in America in 2017 and wish I'd done something about it. I don't want that for you either. This is not the time to watch. You came here. Thank you for that. That is a great step. But inspire others with what you've heard here when you go home. Keep fighting, and our Wisconsin Revolution is who you can come to help you with that. Thank you very much.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Jaime Alvarado. I am a board member with Our Wisconsin Revolution. The segment we're to do right now is on DACA. Unfortunately, Voz de la Frontera could not make it this morning. They're stuck in Racine, and the Dreamer that we wanted to speak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a statement and a call for action. Last week has been a roller coaster for 800,000 young immigrants currently protected by DACA, and it's taken a toll on the families and communities we serve. First, President Trump acted on the threat to revoke DACA protections. This step by President Trump, or 45, was cruel, immoral. Ending DACA will shatter the dreams and greatly undermine the potential 800 deserving children and young people across the United States. But in the last couple days, it seemed that the White House had agreed to turn DACA protections into law. Then they backtracked. Now they're on again. I and fellow activists will always speak truth to power. We are unwavering when it comes to protecting DACA-mentored and DACA-eligible youth. We are working hard on the ground to support these children and their families through free legal screenings, scholarships for DACA applications, and legal fees, and much more. But our work is far from over. We need to help protect immigrant youth. Your voice matters in this struggle. Here's what you can do right now to stand up for immigrant communities. Call on Congress. Tell Congress to immediately pass the bipartisan DREAM Act of 2017. And second, spread the real story. Help show the world that we are a people that embrace and support the dreams of our young strivers. Please share the message with your network. This is our chance to stand on the right side of history and help tens of thousands of vulnerable young people reach their American dream. Thank you.
This fight to protect the Dreamers is everyone's fight, so thank you for that call to action. I'm thrilled to be able to welcome up to the stage a 16-year Bob Fest, every single one. John Nichols from The Nation magazine and the Cap Times has been at every single Bob Fest and many planning meetings for every single Bob Fest. So you have him to thank for the color of the napkins, because he planned that. But really today is, as I said earlier, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and Ed Garvey as the founder of Fighting Bob Fest and Fighting Bob himself. And so no better person to remind us of our history, but tell us what can we do now in the Trumpocalypse. I'm going to welcome John Nichols to the stage.
Brothers and sisters, I want to thank future Congresswoman Sarah Lloyd for introducing me today. I love that she took on Congressman Glenn Grothman up there. I know there's other people taking him on. Sarah, she's got to run again. She may not run for Congress. You know what I think, though? When I look at her, I really see a lieutenant governor, maybe, or a secretary, or state treasurer, or something. Because this woman embodies the Wisconsin progressive farm labor tradition of pulling every part of this state together on behalf of economic and social justice and peace rather than war. Man, I love so many people in this room. I don't know where to begin. I'm going to say a few things here. I'm not going to talk about that. I've been on this book tour going around the country. And we have an event, I think it's a week from Thursday at Boswell's up on the east side. Come on up. But right now last 2 weeks, I've been in Washington and New York and LA and San Francisco and Seattle and all these great big cities out on the coast. And my publisher said, well, why are you taking this break from all this tour, all this stuff? It's going good, blah, blah, blah. Why are you taking this break in the middle of September? And I said, to a very, very smart, very good woman out there in New York City, I said, sister, the middle of September for me belongs to Ed Garvey and Fighting Bob Fest and the state of Wisconsin that we are going to take back from Scott Walker and Paul Ryan and everybody who has diminished the legacy of Robert M. LaFollette. This is the greatest state in the country. There is no question of that. We get dragged down sometimes. We get pushed around sometimes. It isn't the first time when I said we're the greatest state in the country, people might challenge me. Occasionally somebody will say, yeah, but what about Joe McCarthy? And it's true, that was an error. I like to note that he went to Marquette. I know we make mistakes now and again. We don't brag on ourselves too much. Look we consider healthy eating to be cheese curds and beer. And at some point in our lives, we are going to recognize that that was probably a mistake. But the fact of the matter is that as we make our mistakes, we enjoy our struggles. As we get beaten up sometimes, we pull ourselves right back up and fight some more. It's been said before that it was Ed Garvey's dream that Fighting Bob Fest would come out of Madison, out of Sauk County, and all over the state. And I want to tell you tonight, this afternoon, I know Pam Garvey is with us tonight, Ed's daughter. Where's Pam? Right over there. There's Ed's daughter, Pam, is with us today. Randy Bryce, who's running for Congress against Ryan, is with us today. And I think Kathy Myers is here as well. There's other people, good folks who are running and campaigning. And I point out Randy only because there are a couple times where I saw Randy and Ed down there in Racine fighting some fights. And some of Ed's biggest fights were in places like Racine and in Jefferson County and up in the northern parts of the state and out in the western parts of the state, because Ed Garvey came from Burlington, Wisconsin, where I come from. Well, I'm actually from suburban Burlington, Union Grove. And you know, Barbara Lawton was from over in Waterford. So there was this triangle of Burlington, Union Grove, and Waterford, this little area out in western Racine County, very conservative part of the state. And you know, many people say, how did progressives come out of that conservative part of Wisconsin? The fact of the matter is, our biggest mistake as progressives is that we don't recognize there are progressives in every township in this state. Our job is to go out and organize them and pull them into this process and say, we want 100% turnout. We'll put our bet on the people of this state. We will believe that if we get 100% turnout, we win. Voter suppression is not just an urban issue. Voter suppression is a rural issue. When you tell people they've got to drive 60, 100 miles to go get a voter ID, then they've got to jump through hoops to do this. Voter suppression dispossesses people of their human right to determine their government. It dispossesses people in Milwaukee and in Racine, and it dispossesses people in Iron County and in Iowa County and across this state. These are universal issues. I want to also note the presence of Don Richards, your former city councilman here in Milwaukee. More than a decade ago, Don asked me to commit, he put it in his will, that I would preach at his funeral, that I'd do the eulogy. And Don and I have had a commitment ever since then, because I'm rather busy, that he will not die. Don comes out, and I'm in Milwaukee, and I don't want to miss sight of that. Don comes from a Milwaukee left-wing tradition that embraces civil rights and economic and social justice and peace, and that has done so for generations. It is a Milwaukee tradition that traces back to the Milwaukee Turners, those German 48ers who came to this place and said they wanted to bring the revolutions they were trying to do in Europe to the United States of America. Oh, brothers and sisters, those German 48ers, they brought us Emil Seidel, the first socialist mayor of a great American city. And they brought us the greatest mayor in the history of the United States, Frank Zeidler. Brothers and sisters, when somebody said, oh, wow, Bernie Sanders is introducing America to the brilliant and redemptive concept of democratic socialism. And I said, well, maybe he's introducing some of America, but Milwaukee, Wisconsin felt it for decade after decade. That's why we have an open waterfront in this city. That's why this city is different and better than other cities. And yeah, it's been knocked down. And yeah, it's been assaulted. But it's been assaulted by neoliberal reactionaries in Washington, by austerity reactionaries in Madison. The people of this city stand strong, as they always have, for economic and social justice. This is a great American city. No one Ed Garvey loved this city. He loved this city. He loved campaigning in the churches. He loved, well, you can't do that. That's illegal. I know it was just a nonpartisan visit. He loved marching for civil rights. He loved getting out there for economic and social justice, but also for immigrant rights. He loved the work that Voces de la Frontera is doing. I was out in LA last week, and it was right before a book event. I got a text from one of my mom's friends. It had a picture of my mom in her red cape. She's 87. And the text just said, "Your mom is at it again." And my mom, on the day that Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III announced the DACA tragedy and travesty, on the day he announced that, my 87-year-old mother from Union Grove went to downtown Racine with Voces de la Frontera to stand in solidarity with immigrants and to say, these people are a full part of our country. They're what make it great. That's the Ed Garvey tradition. That's the Wisconsin progressive tradition. Now I'm called upon today to transition a little bit from some of our great speakers from here to one of our great speakers coming from out of town. And Nina Turner, coming from out of town. Coming from a city that is a lot like Milwaukee. She's from Cleveland. You know, when Robert M. La Follette ran for President of the United States in 1924, he carried one state, Wisconsin, and he carried one major city, Cleveland. So I just want you to know that Nina Turner is welcome in Wisconsin because she comes from a state that actually understood. She comes to a state that understood what her city understood. And the fact of the matter is, Nina Turner's been all about civil rights, all about economic justice, all about social justice. And here's the interesting thing. When La Follette ran for president in 1924, it was the only time in the history of the country that the NAACP stepped out of its nonpartisan role and endorsed a candidate for president. That candidate was Robert M. La Follette, because he was standing against lynching and segregation and the Klan. Oh, brothers and sisters. You come to our great state of Wisconsin, you don't come as an outsider, you come connected into what we are. So I just want to get this thing going with one little thought here. I know some of you may feel depressed. Not right now, I know this is the greatest moment of your life, but I know that some of you may, in the darker moments of your day, you may head on home, you're driving in that car and you're over mowing the lawn or you're taking out the trash, you're doing something, you start to think, oh my goodness, Donald Trump is the president of the United States. I forgot, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Oh my goodness, Scott Walker is the governor of Wisconsin, I forgot, oh my, this is horrible. Paul Ryan is the Speaker of the House. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. I know how you can talk yourself into being just a little bit depressed. So brothers and sisters, I just want to tell you something. You are of a better stock than that. You are a better people than to get depressed or to slow down or to give up or to turn away. Brothers and sisters, down there, at the bottom of Missionary Ridge, down near Chattanooga, Tennessee. Missionary Ridge is the ridge that extends out from Lookout Mountain. Down there at the bottom of Missionary Ridge, that's where the Wisconsin 24th was during that battle at Lookout Mountain. They were down there among the trees. They were young kids, mostly from Milwaukee and from counties in eastern Wisconsin. The elite units were fighting over at Lookout Mountain. They were trying to take Lookout Mountain because this was the great line between the border states and the Deep South. It was 1863. They were trying to win a breakthrough in the struggle, not to keep the Union together. It was a much deeper struggle than that. It was a struggle to address the original sin of the American experiment, slavery, to address human bondage and to end it. Liars will tell you the Civil War was about keeping Alabama in the Union. Truth tellers will tell you the Civil War was about freeing human beings from human bondage, which is a sin. And those young men down there in those trees at the bottom of Missionary Ridge, they heard that the elite units fighting over at Lookout Mountain had given up for the day. They had decided that they couldn't take it because the Confederate weapons up on the top of that mountain were arrayed with such power They were nailing them, they were just beating them down, and they just couldn't take Lookout Mountain. And so the young Wisconsinites over by Missionary Ridge, kids from Jefferson County and Iowa County, Racine County, from Milwaukee and Sheboygan and townships, rural cross corners across the state, they basically decided among themselves, this is the day that we make it clear slavery is going to end. This is the day that we make it clear that this great struggle against human bondage is going to cross that line into the Deep South, cross over into Georgia, and begin to take this country away from its original sin toward the higher ground. And a young teenager grabbed the battle flag of the Wisconsin unit and went over the berm and started running up the hill. He was beheaded by a Confederate cannonball. Another young kid grabbed the flag and started running up the hill. He was mowed down by Confederate fire. The flag was lying there on the ground. An 18-year-old kid from Milwaukee jumped over the berm and grabbed that flag and held it up above his head, and he started running up that hill. And he got shot in the shoulder, he got shot in the leg, and he kept on running up that hill. And he got to the top of that hill, literally amidst the Confederate cannons. And he took that Wisconsin flag and he started waving it with his shot arm, with the blood running down his uniform, and yelling at the top of his lungs, "On Wisconsin! On Wisconsin!" And those young soldiers from across this state, at the bottom of that hill, they heard Arthur MacArthur at the top of that hill yelling, "On Wisconsin!" And they poured over that berm, and they started running up that hill. Hundreds died that day, but they took Missionary Ridge and they crossed that barrier into the Deep South. It was Wisconsinites who led this state in ending the original sin of the American experiment. So brothers and sisters, in the Ed Garvey tradition, in the Bob Fest tradition, in the Arthur MacArthur tradition, in the tradition of this state's great courage, I tell you today, you cannot be depressed. You cannot be slowed down. You cannot turn away from the mission. We are raising the battle flag once more. We are saying, "On Wisconsin!" We will take this state back. We will lead this country once more to be the progressive, cooperative Commonwealth where economic and social justice are not just slogans, they are the reality of a new America. And that new America will begin here in Wisconsin. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to introduce our first. Should I bring her up? No. I'm not going to bring Nina Turner up. I'm just going to say this. I love every one of you. Art, I love you. I love every one of you. I love what you've done. I love who you are. I love that you were there in 2011, outside that Capitol. I love that you are here today. And I love that you know who we are. And I love that we, not too long from now, not very long, we're going to stand in that great Capitol where some of us slept overnight, and we're going to celebrate the fact that that Capitol no longer belongs to the vulture capitalists. It no longer belongs to those who would attack our voting rights. It no longer belongs to those who would attack our treaty rights. It no longer belongs to those who would attack our environmental rights. It belongs to those who celebrate human rights. Solidarity, brothers and sisters. This fight is ours, and we will win it.
So much, John Nichols. That was wonderful, and I feel extremely inspired. I'm so inspired that I have to tell you about lunch. No, but I do. We do have lunches for sale for $10, and Mike is gonna collect your tickets Yes? Stand up, Mike. He's going to be over here if you bought a ticket. If you need a ticket, go out in the hall. But we do have to eat to maintain our sustenance for the revolution, so I want to make sure that you have a lunch, and we had to prepay for the lunches, so I want you to eat them to cover the cost, because there were costs for this. So done with the mundane part of the revolution, but we do want you fed. I am thrilled to be able to bring up a Milwaukee assembly person. David Bowen, are you ready for some action up here? So David Bowen is here, representative from the city of Milwaukee, and he'll speak with us about bridging the divide.
Good afternoon, family. One more time, good afternoon, family. I'm honored to be here. I'm state representative and also vice chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, David Bowen. I wanted to make sure that we take a moment of silence for those who recently have lost their lives to police violence in the few weeks leading up to today. If we could take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. A lot of times, we don't recognize the shoes that people are walking in. And I know this event is called Fighting Bob LaFolic Fest, and Bob LaFolic is a great man. But we have to make sure that we recognize the plight of individuals who have even lost their lives blocks away from this location. And if we don't do that, we wonder why we lose elections. See, I am in my third year of being in leadership of the Dem Party. Thank you. And while people had questions about 2016, I knew all the answers, unfortunately. Because if you were on the grassroots level, you could feel the frustration in the air with individuals living in communities in Milwaukee, because they knew the story of Dontre Hamilton. They knew the story of Derek Williams. They knew the story of Corey Stingley, and countless others who have been inflicted by a system that should be there to protect and serve them too. And I had a chance to go to the 2016 convention, and before that I endorsed Bernie Sanders, because I was excited about Bernie's platform. But I had a chance to talk to some of the top staff of the Hillary Clinton campaign and was very much disappointed of the tone deafness of not being able to connect with that frustration and presenting real changes and solutions to actually address those things. So just this week and the week before, there was a report that was finally leaked out for those of us that are very familiar with making sure that we're fighting for justice in Milwaukee when it comes to having fair practices and best practices made by our police department. It was a report that we've been screaming for probably for the last 10 years. And it finally got leaked out, a report done by the DOJ under the Obama administration, listing every change that the police department needs to make. Over 100 changes. Now, I really didn't come to plan to talk about that, but it's very timely in this moment. Because people are watching. And as I look at this room, there are a lot of individuals that live in this community that aren't in this room today. And they're watching. They're watching to see if we will actually champion the issues and the solutions that they are thirsting for. And I think that lack and that hesitation has hurt us. It's hurt us as Democrats. It's even hurt us as progressives. But the solution that we have is to make sure that we get out of this cycle. That's the beauty of this moment. That we can fix this. That we can make sure that we are supporting people running for office with our name on the ticket, that are going to champion those issues, that are going to fight for those solutions. And this week in particular has been tougher than most, I'll say that. I come today from a Capitol building in Madison that has passed the largest corporate giveaway from a state in the history of this country. $3 billion. And I had colleagues, mostly on the other side of the aisle, but I have to admit, even some on my side too, that truly believe in trickle-down economics. They think if you throw $3 billion to one corporate company, that if you skip over all the obligations that you have to the citizens that you serve, to ensure that their schools are funded, to ensure that their roads are paved, to ensure that their systems of healthcare actually is affordable. Matter of fact, it should be free. If you can bridge, and bridge is a very important word, if you can bridge these issues between communities in rural and urban Wisconsin, we will never be beat. We will never be beat. And it was funny, I was looking at an interview with some Trump supporters. And for those of us that pay attention to the polling all the time, Donald Trump is definitely below water in southeastern Wisconsin. And then when you get to the southern central Wisconsin, he evens up, but he's a little bit underwater. But you get to the core of western, central, and northern Wisconsin, he's still even. And it's interesting because in that interview, they mentioned things like, we're used to living in poverty. They said people on benefits are driving better trucks than us. Illegal aliens are not paying taxes, so we got to cut the strings off. And people making decisions are not thinking of people who are like me. Sound familiar? Yeah. Now I challenge you, Fighting Bob Fest, progressives in this room. I say with a little bit of anti-racist education. I say with a little bit of sincere listening. I say with a little bit of compassion, we can still build some bridges. But we cannot forget about the core of our base. The core of our base who, in the New York Times article after the election said, I'm totally fine and okay that I didn't vote on election day. I have no regrets for not being engaged on election day. People that consciously didn't use their power because they weren't convinced. And I think it really is up to the progressive wing of our voters, our base, to lead the way in demanding that we create an agenda that will build fairness for all people. I believe that we can do that. And I believe the Democratic Party can also make sure that they are supporting the grassroots level of leadership and not treating you as an ATM. I believe people want to be partners. And when it comes to these core issues that are affecting people in our community, that are affecting people across this state, we're all getting screwed by extreme conservative interests right now. And the epicenter of the leadership of that is based in wealthy conservative donors. It's based in conservative foundations that are even located downtown in this city. And they are leading the charge against everyone. So I come here today to make sure that I don't go over time, because I think I might be getting close. But I come here making a compromise, and I'm going to lead by example. So for the next 3 months, I'll be on the road in every congressional district. And thank you. The Bridges Over Divide tour will get a chance to engage everybody across the spectrum, those who are frustrated with the party, those who willingly set out the election and don't believe that their power can change the situation, and those who are even frustrated at their own side, their own conservative side. We have a chance. And I'm excited because I know that there are people in this room that are willing to actually take action, give up their own time, spend their own energy, and spend their own money in making this a reality. In Milwaukee, in the western part of the state, in the northern part of the state, we will leave no stone unturned. But it really will be up to us to do that. And 2016 was a big example of too many folks sitting on the sidelines. If we want power, we are going to have to take it from Scott Walker. If we want power, we're going to have to take it from Paul Ryan. And if we want power, we will have to take it from Donald Trump. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to do that? Well, let's go to work then. Thank you.
Revolution Board, who also works with RID Races in Milwaukee, is here to introduce Nina Turner. So here you come.
All right. Well, first I gotta do a couple of things before then. Thanks again. As I mentioned earlier, I am a board member of Our Wisconsin Revolution. I am also helping lead the effort with Our Wisconsin Revolution, the Milwaukee chapter. Many of whom are here and many of whom have helped with the planning of this event. So please help me thank them for this great event. Please check your table. Our information table is right next to the front door. I am also a co-chair of RID Racism Milwaukee. Maybe you heard of us. We are in the far right-hand corner if you want information. Shameless plug quickly. Our mission is to educate and empower our community to dismantle individual and systemic racism. My other task is the honor to introduce a keynote speaker. I was fortunate to represent the state at the Democratic National Convention as a Bernie delegate. Nina Turner spoke at a breakfast event, and the whole delegation was inspired, and she was on fire. What was very impressionable was how Both Bernie and Hillary delegates gave her a standing applause, and we were all amazed. As you well know, she's been a strong voice in progressive politics and has been a key advisor to Senator Bernie Sanders during his primary. She appears regularly as a commentator on TV and radio. She is the president of Our Revolution. She's dubbed the Woman on Fire, and I think we all know why. Without further ado, please help me welcome the Woman on Fire, Senator Nina Turner.
I want to thank Jamie so much for that wonderful, wonderful introduction. And I remember that, being with the delegates from Wisconsin at the DNC convention, and that was really one of the highlights of my moments there, because I had some dark moments there too, but being with the Wisconsin delegation was truly wonderful. So Jamie, thank you, and thank you for the work that your organization is doing. You heard Jamie say that that group is focused on eradicating racism, both individual and systemic. And we don't focus enough on the systemic side of the ledger, so I'm so glad to hear him say that. Because what happened in Charlottesville was unimaginable in the 21st century, that we would come face to face with folks that were just that bold to walk down the streets of a city and spew hate and racism and bigotry. But also we must be concerned about those folks who are undercover with their racism. Those people who wear a blue suit over white sheets, we gotta be worried about that. So thank you, Jamie, to your group. And I gotta give a shout out to Sarah. I wanna thank Alicia for, just bearing with me all morning, all night. We've been together. But to have my dear friends, both of them, John Nichols and Representative Bowen, do the daggone thing, they pretty much took my speech between the both of them. And I don't know if Josh is still here, but I want to give a shout out to him as well. I'm really glad that he is running for Attorney General in this state, because I'm going to tell you something. It's not just governors' races that we need to be concerned about, but we should be concerned about folks who hold statewide offices, and the Attorney General's seat is vitally important for pushing justice in this state and all across this country. And I want to thank Josh for carrying on the tradition of his mother, I'm told. To Terrence, who talked about what he wants his legacy to be before he leaves this earth, was very powerful in that he is reminding us, he did remind us that we all have the opportunity to do some good in this world. I would like to say to that finer point to what he said is that, titles are really, really good. They get you in the room, they get your phone calls returned. But titles without purpose, titles are good, but purpose is better. And we need more people who are driven by purpose than by a title. So for Our Revolution Wisconsin, Our Revolution Milwaukee in particular, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. And on behalf of Our Revolution National, I am so glad to be in Wisconsin. Listen, Sarah told me I had to stay up here, that I couldn't walk the room like I usually do. So I got the shakes up here, because I'm accustomed to being down there where you are. But to start off in Madison last night, to be in Milwaukee right now, and then we're going to be making our way to La Crosse. This is just a beautiful day for me. And I would be remiss if I didn't say something about Brother Jim Hightower, who could not be with us this year because he has a family emergency. But can we give a hand clap of praise for Brother Jim Hightower? I got a chance to wear one of his hats last night, but we miss him, and please keep him and his family in your prayers. So what do I want to say, Fighting Bob? You guys have a tradition, so now you're not going to be able to get rid of a sister. I'll be here next year too. But man, Senator Bob, and as Sarah was explaining to me the history, and his wife Belle, this tradition that you all are carrying on to be freedom fighters generation after generation for people who, but for you standing in the gap, would not have a voice. This is a wonderfully perfect tradition to have and to carry on. But I'm going to tell you something, sisters and brothers. This is not just about how great Senator Bob and his wife, what we are going to do right now in 2017 to continue the fight for social justice, for racial justice, and for economic justice right here, right now. And we have so much work to do. When Representative Bowen was talking about the tour that he is leading, that tour to bridge the gap, it's a wonderful thing. Because sometimes we get so caught up in who's a Democrat and who's a Republican that we forget to try to see somebody's humanity. And I had the opportunity to not only travel this country on behalf of Senator Bernie Sanders, but when I ran for Secretary of State in 2014, I traveled my own state and in some of the rural parts of the state of Ohio. And many of you may know that he won 30 out of 88 counties, Mr. Trump did, in the great state of Ohio, and all of those counties were rural. When I reflect on how he won the state of Ohio compared to the people I talked to in 2014, I noticed something. That as Representative Bowen pointed out, people have given up on the system, and they don't necessarily believe what comes out of the mouths of elected officials anymore. That some folks say one thing when they're running for office and they do another once they get into that office. And so people are opting out, but people are voting their interest. And though the majority of the people in this room, we might not quite be able to understand why some folks would vote for Mr. Trump. What we have to do, though, instead of vilifying folks, is what Stephen Covey once said, which is to seek first to understand and then to be understood. That is what we must do. You know, in Cleveland, Ohio, the Republican convention was held right in my home city. And John was there, there were other folks that were there. And what I noticed as I walked the streets, and I talked to folks who were very much supportive of the person that's in the White House right now. But I did not hear anything from them that was that different from what I've heard all over this country and even in my great state about wanting to live a good life. That if they have children, they want their children to have a better life than what they have and to be safe. Those are the same things that I heard when I ran across the state in 2014. Those were the same things that I heard when I served as a national surrogate for Senator Bernie Sanders. The difference is how we get there. And the way that we get there, for us, for progressives, is to stand up boldly and strongly and to support policy positions and policy makers that will change the trajectory of the majority of the lives of the people in this country. And some of those people voted for Mr. Trump. We are fighting for Medicare for all, not just for people who are progressive, not just for people who believe in it, but we're also fighting for it for people who don't believe. That's our call. So we got to seek to understand, because everybody who voted for him is not a flaming racist, as much as people want to paint them that way. Don't forget that some of the same people who voted for Mr. Trump also voted for President Obama. So how do we reconcile that? There is a disconnect in this country, and it is not the duty of people who are not running for office to figure out that disconnect. It is the job of the people who are actually running for office to seek first to understand and then to be understood, and to not to throw anybody away in this country. We have no throwaway people in this country. And that's hard. That's hard work. And I say that to you not just because of my travels all across this country, or even in my home state, but I got to say something to you, Bob Fest sisters and brothers. I come from a mixed family. Now, as hard as it may be for you to believe, I have a conservative, and when I say conservative, I mean conservative brother in my family And somebody says we all do. And I'm telling that story about my brother because he calls me every morning. We talk at 7:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday, so that I can get into the mind and help to try to understand the conservative way of thinking. But I bring him up because I love my brother. And there is no ideology that can separate my love for him. And in the same way that some of you may have members of your family or of your community who might see things a different way, we cannot allow our fight for the issues to erode our love for the people in our community, the people in our family. We must recognize everybody's humanity. And if we really do believe that in this nation, that people have a right to choice, not just reproductive choice for women, but choice of mind, of body, of soul, of presentation, as long as it does not step on or hurt anybody else, then we have to respect the choices that some of our sisters and brothers made in this country, and instead of tearing them down, let's try to build those bridges that Representative Bowen was talking about. That's how we're gonna win people over. On the issues, but soft on people. I believe that, and it is hard work, because sometimes it's hard to understand. But Stephen Covey was right. But so was Mother Jones was right. And freedom fighters like Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm and Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. So we have a moral obligation to do what we do in love, but to do it in fierceness. And in a way that is soft on people, but hard on the issues. We must resist not just what is happening in the White House, but we must resist that very human desire to vilify the people on the other side. That is what we must resist to. So we got a fight on our hands, sisters and brothers, and I know that you know what this is, and we are fighting for social justice. We are fighting for economic justice, racial justice, environmental justice, just justice flat out. But things won't change because of folks with fancy titles. The way that we get change in this country is when ordinary people put a little extra on it and we get extraordinary outcomes. That is how we change this country. And it will be one city at a time, one community at a time, one state at a time. And we can do this because in America, we didn't start off the right way, and we don't have time for my history lesson, but I want to remind you that the revolutions that have happened throughout the course of history in this country, starting with the American Revolution in the 1700s, where people were fighting to say that we deserve a better way, a better day, and we deserve to control our own destiny, so we're going to break away. The same fight, but for different reasons, happened during the Civil War in the 1800s. For some folks, it was about economics, it was about chattel slavery, the enslavement of African American folks, and the profit and the wealth that was created in this country on the backs of black folks. But folks fought that war, the other revolution. And then in the 1960s, the Civil Rights Revolution, less bloody, but hard, nevertheless, to cement the fact that all of us are created equal and are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. And now in the 21st century, we are at the dawn of a new revolution that is saying the same thing, that we must stand up and rise up and speak out against and be willing to put something on the line for justice in this country in the 21st century. That is our charge, a new revolution. And we cannot be so in love with a political party that we don't have the courage to critique it. And because I love it, I critique it. We need more working folks running for office and more working folks that have the power. And both political parties have become too elitist. And they're locking out the everyday women and men in this country who wake up every day and work hard. And we must change that. And that's why I give a shout out to the Working Families Party for the work that they're doing to shake it up. Shake it up. Disrupt for good. So sisters and brothers, we must push and we must breathe. I remember when I gave birth to my son, who was 27 years old, like it was yesterday. And for any mothers in the room, you know what I'm talking about. That thought, that pain, everything that you endured, it never quite goes away. And I sometimes guilt my son when I'm having flashbacks about the fact that I still haven't lost that baby weight 27 years later. I'm still working on it. And I got the stretch marks to prove it. Only mothers can tell this story about being in labor for 90 days. And you know what I'm talking about. You got to lay it on. But I remember what the doctor said to me when I was at the peak of my pain. The doctor said, push and breathe. So sisters and brothers, even though it seems dark, and sometimes we don't see how we're going to get out of this thing, I'm saying that you push and breathe, because the darkness is not a tomb, it is a womb, and a breakthrough is coming. Rebirth is happening. We will push and we will breathe. That's what we're going to do. We're not going anywhere. Fighting Bob, y'all understand this. But then we must protest and we must plan. Protest is good. We need it. It helps. It draws attention. But we also need some folks on the planning side of the ledger. Because what are we going to do when the opportunity to re-seize the power happens, so that we have elected folks in office who actually care more about the next generation than they care about their next election? That we get folks elected to office who don't say one thing when they're knocking at your door and do another thing when they get elected to office. That is what we need, so we have to plan for that. We got to plan. And our revolution is not just about who serves in the U.S. Senate or who serves in the U.S. House of Representatives. It is about who serves as governor, who serves as attorney general, who serves as secretary of state, who serve as state reps and state senators, who serve as school board members and mayors and township trustees and city council members. That we cannot jump over 2017 to get to 2020. That every single election year we must be on and popping. That there is no such thing as an off-year election. Every election year matters. We must plan for that. And sisters and brothers, do I dare say that we must critique the people who we elect to office. Even if we love them, even if we support them, nobody is above critique. And as a college professor, I give my students, there's a midterm grade. That midterm grade allows my students to know exactly where they stand. Well, I'm saying to the voters of this country that we need to give elected officials a midterm grade, let them know where they stand, so that they are not surprised if we don't support them the next time around. We don't owe them our vote. They got to earn the vote. And somehow in 2016 in particular, that was turned around, that somehow people running for office believe that you owe them. They owe you for the privilege to wield your power in those seats for the greater good. They owe you. And every time we run for office, we must say to you and prove to you why we are worthy to have your vote. So don't let anybody guilt you into voting for them. They must earn your vote, and that is every single time their name is on the ballot. Man, and don't get me started on your governor. Let me just say this, y'all already know, the brother gotta go. Right, he has to go. Come on, Wisconsin, you guys, you can do this. So that's part of the planning. But once we push and breathe, protest and plan, then we must persevere. Because none of this happens overnight, but we must fight with a sense of urgency, knowing that we're going to have to continue to push and push and push and push and push. As Sarah said up here, when Senator Sanders first introduced Medicare for All, he had 0 co-sponsors. Now he's up to 16. That didn't happen overnight. And in the House of Representatives, our Representative John Conyers is holding it down over there with 117 co-sponsors for Medicare for All. This is an idea whose time has come. When Sarah shared with me when she picked me up from the airport the fact that so many farmers across this country don't have access to high quality health care, and that when they went to the Congress to lobby, so many elected officials were surprised that Medicare for All was their top priority, because we forget that farmers are small business owners like any other small business owner, and that they and their families and their workers must have access to high quality health care to be able to provide us with the food that we eat. And it also reminded me that what folks want in rural America is not that different than what folks want in urban America. That we are, and that we have more in common than not. And we cannot allow elected officials for political expediency to divide us. When people talk about economics, we talking about lottie-dottie and everybody. When we say the working class, we talking about the white working class, the black working class, the Hispanic working class, the Asian working class, the Native American working class, everybody. Everybody. And to my white sisters and brothers, let me just say this. That as we fight against racism, both covert and overt, we need you. Because it is not just the responsibility of black and brown folks to stand up against a system that is trying to deny their humanity. This is the work of all conscious-minded folks. All of us, all of us, all of us, all of us. And when it comes to police brutality, we know that there's an ache in this country. And I say that not just as a freedom fighter myself, but I say that as someone who is married to a retired police officer and as a mother of a current police officer right now. I get it on both sides, on all sides of the spectrum, how hard this is. But people in this country have a right to expect accountability and transparency from law enforcement across this country. Black folks have a right to expect that their lives will be respected. And that is a fight for all of us. All of us who care about humanity, and it just can't be a talking point when it's convenient. And some elected officials, they got a list that they got to roll, they got to name everything on a list so that now they can get you excited, and when they get the power, they're not going to do anything to change the system. We must demand more. Brother Frederick Douglass once said that power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. And we're going to demand some stuff in the 21st century. Either you are for what is right or you are not. And there is no middle ground to that. And although the vast majority of our sisters and brothers in law enforcement come to work every day to do the right thing, we also need them to speak up on the rotten apples in their bunch as well. That when things are wrong, we need good people to speak up and to speak out. We need mayors and governors and folks who have power to do something about this scourge that is happening in this country. We gotta do it. And I'm so passionate about these issues because I come from a working class family. I had grandparents who were very middle class, who worked very hard so that my mother, who was an only child, so that she could have a good life. I want you to understand me beyond the sound bites, beyond what you see on TV, that I think and I feel deeply and that I am proud. Mother Jones once said that we didn't need more humanitarians, we need more hell raisers. But I'm adopting that to say that I am a hell-raising humanitarian. But man, I feel that way not just because I've been blessed to talk to so many people from all walks of life and all political affiliations, but I feel that way because of my life experience. So my parents got married very young. They were teenagers, and it just didn't work out, and I grew up the majority of my life in a single mother household. And even though my mother was an only child and my grandparents worked so hard and my mother could have grown up to be anything that she wanted to be, how many of us know that everybody doesn't run the race in life at the same pace? That things happen that knock people off. And my mother did not reach her full potential in her life. And I'm speaking about her in past tense because my mother died at the young age of 42 years old, with her dreams deferred, as Langston Hughes mentions in his poem. And I was 22 years old. I'm the oldest of 7 children. My baby sister was 12. I'm married and I have a son, and I'm being told that my mother, who went into a coma after having a brain aneurysm, was not going to live. And that at the age of 21 years old, I had to make the decision, of 22 years old, make the decision about when to pull the plug on a mother who was not perfect, but tried to do the best that she could. And I remember that day, sisters and brothers, like it was yesterday. As I reflect on a mother who died on the system of welfare, a mother who had no money in the bank, a mother who didn't even have a life insurance policy for 7 children. I was a sophomore at a community college trying my best to become a cycle breaker, to break the cycle of poverty and undereducation in my family's line. And the death of my mother motivated me even that much more, that for her memory, that I would get a college education and make her proud even in death. I say these things because it is unconscionable to have elected officials who equivocate on helping the poor. I can tell you that if it were not for a safety net, I don't know where I or my 6 siblings would be. So do I believe that Medicare for all is the morally right thing to do? Absolutely, without contradiction. Do I believe that in this country, we need to invest in higher education for our young people so that they're not saddled with debt in one hand and a degree in the other hand? Oh yeah, I do. As a first-generation college graduate, I don't know where I would be without that opportunity. Absolutely make those investments. And not just in college, but also in vocational education. Do you know once upon a time in this country history, we did those kinds of things, especially in places like California. But now we have young people who do what we ask them to do, and when they're walking across the stage to get the degree, they got trillions of dollars of debt in the other hand. It is wrong. It is wrong. And I understand that right here in the great state of Wisconsin, when some Republicans had the opportunity to allow for that kind of debt to be treated in a different way, that it didn't happen. And I heard the representative talk about the tax breaks that, I think he said $3 billion at the expense of everyday people in this country. It is unconscionable that corporate welfare is okay, but yet when everyday people in this country need a hand up, they're vilified. It's wrong. It's wrong. So it is my life experience that informs me and that pushes me to stand up for people who need a larger voice, to stand up for people who have lost hope. But I want to remind you, Fighting Bob, that this race is not given to the swift or even to the strong, but to he or she who endures to the end. This is an endurance race, and we are responsible for making this, not only our nation, but this world a better place, not just for ourselves, but for generations yet unborn. That is our charge. And even though my mother never lived to see her eldest daughter accomplish some pretty incredible things, I do believe that she is in heaven saying, you go, girl, and you continue to speak up, to stand up for what is right, no matter what. And even at the expense of fighting back against the Democratic Party when necessary, about us standing up and not forgetting that we should be the party of the people and no one should feel that we left them behind. We haven't done that, but we will push and breathe. We will protest and plan, and we will persevere. And our stories are our strength. Many of you have stories of hardship of your own, or you know people, but you are, nobody can take your place. And nobody can do what you were assigned to do. And it doesn't cost us anything to be kind. It doesn't cost us anything to uplift. You know, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King once said that darkness cannot eradicate, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can. And hate cannot drive out hate, only love can. And that is why I am pressing upon us, even when you want to lash out, that we don't do it in a way that tears the individual down personally, but that we continue to stand up and fight for the issues that will transform this nation, and that we hold not only ourselves accountable, but we hold the folks who hold those offices accountable and not accept their excuses for not being able to do what is right, what is just, and what is good. No excuse. No excuse. So 3 things besides my push and breathe and protest and plan and persevere. I want you to know that I believe firmly that the creator of this great universe has given us 2 hands, one to reach forward and one to reach back, lifting as we climb. We are our sisters and our brothers' keepers. That we can't ask other folks to do more for us than we are willing to do for ourselves. Brother Frederick Douglass once said that you might not get everything that you work for, but you will work for everything that you get. And we do understand that in this nation, we work hard. But lastly, in the words of my grandmother, who was born in 1913, my grandmother could not read or write, but sisters and brothers, she could count her money. And she kept her money in the Southern Ladies Bank and Trust with a handkerchief. Some of the ladies know where that bank account is located. My grandmother kept her money in a handkerchief on one side and the pistol on the other. I remember growing up and we would go to the grocery store and my grandmother was trying to find that money in the Southern Ladies Bank and Trust, she would call it. And she would pull that handkerchief out and she would put the gun on the other side, and I saw the clerk in the store, kind of just shaking a little bit. My grandmother was a pistol packing mama, I tell you that. She was. But she didn't have a formal education, but she had what we call in the African American community mother wit. And she was indeed one of the smartest women I've ever known. When I asked my grandmother, what does it take to be successful in this life? She said, my dear granddaughter, all you need are the 3 bones. The wishbone, the jawbone, and the backbone. She said, the wishbone will keep you hoping and praying because hope is the motivator, but the dream is the driver. The reason why we do what we do each and every day is because we hope and believe that tomorrow will be better than today. She said the jawbone will give you courage to speak truth to power, to lift your voice, to own your agency. But the most important bone of them all, she said, Nina, is the supercalifragilistic expialidocious bone. And that is the backbone Because the backbone will keep us standing through all of our trials and our tribulations. And in this life, we will go through some stuff, but we can't have a testimony without a test. And we are being tested about, at this particular moment in time in our country's history and then this world's history, whether or not we have courage enough and conviction enough to stand up for what is right, even in the face of pushback and adversity and doubts, that we together can accomplish anything. And that we must never forget that our mission is so high, we can't get over it. And our mission is so low, we can't get under it. And our mission is so wide, we can't get around it. That there's nothing that Scott Walker can do to turn the tide of what is going to happen in this state and this nation when conscious-minded folks get together. That there's nothing that Mr. Trump can do to turn the tide when conscious-minded folks get together and decide that we are going to make this country better. There is nothing that they can do. And they may occupy those offices right now, but that will not be always. That we must do what is necessary today to plan for tomorrow. And for tomorrow, I see a rising tide of progressive folks from all walks of life unified in social, political, economic, environmental, gender justice, sexual orientation justice, to do what we know is the right thing to do to make America, as Congresswoman Barbara Jordan once said, as good as it's promised. That is our charge. That is our mission, and that is what we must do. Fighting Bob! This is our time. God bless you.
In our Wisconsin Revolution and our Revolution National. It's great to have her here, and she's going over to La Crosse so the folks on the other side of the state can hear from her too. So think about that today as we all get lifted up together. We're going to take a networking lunch break right now. You can still buy a ticket for lunch if you need one. So get some sustenance. Visit with the table folks, and we'll start with the panel really quick. So we're going to have a short break. So get ready to come back for the panel, but grab a lunch.
Really good panels coming on, and so I'm going to stop the broadcast, but I'll be back shortly. So stay tuned, share this link with everybody, and see you in about 15-20 minutes.